For the past 9 years, I have been tracking small-town economics across 18 states. Not as a tourist, not as a consultant. As someone who has walked grocery stores, talked to hardware store owners, checked water quality reports, and measured commute times with a full tank of gas and a notebook. While everyone obsesses over zero property tax states or chases the lowest possible cost per square foot, I have been documenting the places nobody talks about. The ones where you can still live on $1,200 a month, get a leaking faucet fixed same day, and not worry whether the tap water will make you sick. Back in March of 2023, when half the country was convinced you had to spend $2 grand a month minimum just to keep a roof over your head in a functional area, I drove through 22 towns testing that assumption. What I found will save you years of bad decisions and thousands of dollars in wasted moves. Here are the 15 cheapest livable addresses in America that still have the infrastructure most people assume disappeared decades ago. 15. Pittsburgh, Kansas. Median one-bedroom rent, $535. Population just over 20,000. Before you assume this is some forgotten corner where nothing works, here are 3 infrastructure facts. The municipal water system was upgraded in 2019 with a $14 million bond. The water quality reports show turbidity levels consistently below 0.2 NTU with lead and copper well within federal limits. The road system inside city limits is 91% paved with no significant pothole complaints logged in the past 18 months. There are 4 hardware stores, 2 big box and 2 independent. Walking into Russ's Do It Best Hardware on North Broadway last October, they had lag bolts in 9 sizes, PVC fittings for irrigation and drain work, 2 full aisles of hand tools, and a guy at the counter who knew which sealant to use on a cracked basement foundation without looking it up. In bigger cities, you pay 3 times the rent to live near a Home Depot where nobody on the floor has been there longer than 4 months. A retired schoolteacher who moved from Wichita in 2021 said her grocery bill dropped by 30%, her car insurance went down $60 a month, and she has not waited longer than 10 minutes at any doctor appointment. The job market is not exploding. This is not a boom town, but if you have remote income or a pension, Pittsburgh gives you a cost structure that lets a single person live comfortably on under $1,500 a month. Streets are plowed in winter. Trash gets picked up twice a week. The library has free Wi-Fi and is open 6 days. Most people looking for cheap living never get past looking at states. They miss the specific towns where infrastructure still works because the tax base never collapsed and the population stayed stable. 14. Clovis, New Mexico. 2-bedroom house rent, $620. Population around 38,000. A standalone single-family home with a front yard, a driveway, central air, and a roof that does not leak. 4 days spent in Clovis in June of 2022, driving every major street in half the residential blocks confirmed that the roads are in better condition than towns triple the size. Curry County maintains them with a combination of state funding and local gas tax revenue. Potholes get patched within 2 weeks of being reported. County employees, not contractors, who have been doing road work in the area for over a decade handle the crack seal program every summer. Water comes from the Ogallala Aquifer, treated at a city facility with 0 violations at its most recent inspection. The utility office emailed the Consumer Confidence Report within 30 minutes of being asked, nitrate levels below 5 parts per million, fluoride at 0.7 parts per million, coliform bacteria non-detect on every sample. You are drinking cleaner water in Clovis than in cities where people pay $900 to share a 2-bedroom apartment. Lone Star Hardware stocks specialty fasteners not seen in chain stores for 5 years, carriage bolts in galvanized and stainless, concrete anchors in 4 diameter options. Rent in Clovis has stayed flat for 3 years while the rest of the Southwest became unaffordable. A single person on Social Security or a remote job can cover rent, utilities, food, and transportation on $1,800 a month and still have margin. 2 hours from Lubbock and 4 hours from Albuquerque, close enough to access bigger services when needed, far enough that the cost of living never inflated. 13. Danville, Illinois. Studio rent, $425/1-bedroom, $510. Population 31,000. These are not income-restricted units. These are open market rentals that have stayed cheap because demand is low and supply is stable. Danville has a reputation for being rough. Some of that is earned, but infrastructure does not care about reputation. It cares about maintenance budgets and competent public works departments. The streets in central neighborhoods are resurfaced on a 7-year rotation. Pavement quality is consistent throughout the north and east sides. No gravel roads inside city limits. The water system serves 24,000 customers, pulling from the Vermilion River and treating at a plant upgraded in 2016. The most recent water quality report shows total trihalomethanes under 60 parts per billion and lead at the 90th percentile of 2 parts per billion. the action level is 15. The Ace Hardware on North Vermilion had a fully stocked plumbing aisle, electrical supplies from basic outlets to subpanel breakers, window screen material by the roll, replacement glass for storm doors, and bulk drywall screws priced by the pound. The kind of inventory that tells you the store is serving contractors and homeowners who actually fix things. A retired machinist who moved from Decatur in 2019 to cut his living costs in half pays $460 a month for a one-bedroom. His power bill runs $60 in summer with the air conditioner on. Water and trash combined are $38. He said he stopped worrying about money for the first time in 15 years. Danville is not pretty, and nobody is going to feature it in a lifestyle magazine. But if livability means functional infrastructure and rent that does not eat your income, Danville delivers. 12 Enid, Oklahoma, 2-bedroom apartment, $600/2-bedroom house, $680. Population just under 50,000. Enid sits in the middle of northwest Oklahoma surrounded by wheat fields and oil infrastructure. It has stayed affordable because it never became trendy and the local economy never collapsed, running on agriculture, energy, and Vance Air Force Base. That base keeps the population stable and prevents the economic freefall that kills infrastructure funding. The dedicated street department has 14 full-time employees. Every arterial road driven was in good condition. Residential streets were a mix of asphalt and concrete with city crews actively working repairs. Water comes from Lake Canton, treated at the city plant with every contaminant below EPA limits. No boil orders in the past 5 years. Tapping from a public park produced no off-taste and no chlorine burn, just clean water. RCB Supply carries bin after bin of loose hardware priced by the piece. Sheet metal screws, machine screws, self-tapping anchors, copper fittings, black pipe for gas lines, and a wall of electrical boxes. The farm co-op has bulk cement in 60-pound bags for half what you pay at a chain store. A woman in her late 60s who moved from Tulsa the year before was renting a small house for $590 a month. Her biggest surprise was not the low rent, it was how much easier it was to get things done. Contractors showed up when they said they would. Parts were in stock. People returned calls. Rent has crept up slightly in the past 2 years but remains half what you would pay in Oklahoma City and a third of any coastal market. 11 Albany, Georgia, 1-bedroom, $550/2-bedroom house, $730. Population around 72,000. 2.5 hours south of Atlanta, an hour and a half from the Florida line. Albany has stayed cheap because it is not on the path to anywhere most people want to go. That geographic isolation has kept rents low and infrastructure surprisingly strong. Dougherty County has a resurfacing program funded by a mix of state DOT money and local SBLOSD taxes. Residential streets off Slappy Boulevard and Dawson Road were paved, striped, and maintained with minimal cracking and no significant washouts. The water intake is from the Flint River with treatment including coagulation, filtration, and chlorination. The 2021 Consumer Confidence Report showed lead non-detect, copper at 0.13 parts per million against an action level of 1.3 and disinfection byproducts within limits. The Ace on Dawson Road had a full selection of fasteners, hand tools, painting supplies, and plumbing repair parts. Staff walked directly to the exact PEX fitting needed without hesitation. Peach Hardware stocked lumber, concrete mix, rebar, and used tools on consignment priced 70% below new. A man in his early 70s who moved from Savannah after his wife passed was living on Social Security and a small pension. In Savannah, he could not make rent. In Albany, he was paying $600 a month for a one-bedroom duplex with a carport and a small yard. Power bill ran $70 in summer, $50 in winter. Water was $32 a month. He was eating better than he had in 5 years because groceries were cheaper and he was not stressed about rent. How to evaluate a town before you move. If you are trying to figure out whether a town is truly livable or just cheap because it is falling apart, a free livability checklist is available in the description. It breaks down 12 infrastructure markers you can verify in under 2 hours, how to pull water quality reports, what road maintenance schedules look like in functional towns, and which hardware store inventory signals tell you whether local contractors trust the place. It will save you from wasting a weekend driving to a town that looks good on a rent website but fails in person. 10 Scottsbluff, Nebraska, 2-bedroom apartment, $575/2-bedroom house with garage, $650. Population just under 15,000. In the far western Nebraska panhandle near the Wyoming border, Scottsbluff is anchored by Regional West Medical Center employing over 1,000 people, keeping the local economy stable even when crop prices drop. Every numbered street and named avenue inside city limits showed consistent pavement with intact curbs and clear storm drains. A road crew was actively milling and repaving a two-block section on East 20th Street. Water comes from the North Platte River and 14 groundwater wells, with the treatment plant using filtration, disinfection, and fluoridation. The water quality report showed nitrate below 10 parts per million, no lead detects, and all coliform testing negative. Tapping from a city park produced cold, clean water with no chemical aftertaste. Hilltop Hardware, run by the same owner for 31 years, had lag screws in 7 lengths, galvanized carriage bolts, stainless U-bolts, and copper pipe fittings for old plumbing systems. He asked what the job was and suggested the right solution without trying to upsell. A woman who moved from Denver in 2020 was paying $630 a month for a 2-bedroom house with a basement and a 1-car garage. In Denver, she had been paying $1,400 for a 1-bedroom with no parking. Her stress dropped. Her savings account grew. She started sleeping through the night. Scottsbluff is remote, Denver is 3.5 hours away, but if remote is not a problem, it offers infrastructure and affordability most people assume do not coexist anymore. 9. Martinsville, Virginia, 1-bedroom, $475/2-bedroom house, $590. Population just under 13,000. When textile and furniture manufacturing left, the population dropped and the cost of living collapsed. What did not collapse was the infrastructure. The city still maintains its streets, the water system still works, and the hardware stores are still open. The city has a street maintenance crew that patches, seals, and resurfaces on a prioritized schedule, hot asphalt from a truck-mounted kettle, structural work, not cosmetic. The water system draws from Leesville Lake and the Smith River with treatment including sedimentation, filtration, and chlorination. The most recent water quality report showed lead and copper below action levels, disinfection byproducts within federal limits, and total coliform samples all negative. Badger Hardware, operating since 1961, carried compression fittings, flare fittings, PVC in 6 diameter sizes, wire nuts, junction boxes, breakers, GFCI outlets, handsaws, chisels, files, rasps, and a wall of screws and bolts organized by size and material. The counter staff walked directly to splittering washers for a trailer hitch without hesitation. A retired truck driver who moved from Roanoke was renting a small house for $540 a month. Power was $65, water was $28, car insurance was $83. He was living well on less than $1,400 a month and had stopped working side jobs for the first time in his adult life. Nobody is moving to Martinsville for opportunity. People are moving there to stop hemorrhaging money. 8. Great Falls, Montana, 1-bedroom, $630/2-bedroom house, $750. Population around 59,000, cold, remote, and affordable. Malmstrom Air Force Base keeps population and funding stable, and that stability shows up everywhere. Most arterial roads are in excellent condition. A fresh asphalt crew was repaving a full section on 10th Avenue South. Water comes from the Missouri River with conventional filtration and chlorination, turbidity consistently below 0.15 NTU, lead and copper well below action levels, no chlorine burn from the tap. Ace Hardware on 10th Avenue South carried drywall anchors, PVC cement, caulk guns, and sawzall blades, with staff who could immediately specify the right toggle bolt for mounting a heavy shelf on plaster. North 40 Outfitters had T-posts, barbed wire, stock panels, treated lumber, bags of concrete, and a full tool section. A man in his 60s who moved from Billings was paying $700 for a 2-bedroom house with a 1-car garage and a fenced yard, $300 less per month than a smaller Billings apartment. He said the winters were harder in Great Falls, but his budget was easier, and that trade-off worked for him. Great Falls is not for everyone. If you hate cold, cross it off the list. But if cold does not scare you and you want a place where rent does not eat half your income, Great Falls is one of the best-kept secrets in the Northern Rockies. 7. Lawton, Oklahoma, 1-bedroom, $585/2-bedroom house, $710. Population around 93,000. Next to Fort Sill, one of the largest active Army bases in the country. The base stabilizes the local economy and keeps infrastructure funding consistent. The city street department maintains over 600 lane miles of pavement. City-managed crews, not contractors, were patch sealing Northwest Euclid Avenue on the visit. Water is drawn from Lake Lawtonka and Lake Ellsworth with treatment including coagulation, sedimentation, filtration, and chlorination. All contaminants below EPA limits. Lead non-detect. Tapping from a public park near the lake produced clean water with no sulfur and no metallic notes. Atwood's Ranch and Home carries bulk hardware, fence supplies, concrete mix, rebar, treated posts, socket sets, sawhorses, and drill bits alongside the standard Ace hardware inventory. A woman in her early 70s who moved from Tulsa after her husband died was living on Social Security and a small pension. In Tulsa, she had been barely covering rent. In Lawton, she was paying $600 a month for a two-bedroom house with central heat and air, a carport, and a small backyard. Utilities were lower, groceries were cheaper, and she had stopped worrying about running out of money before the end of the month. Lawton is not scenic. It is flat, windy, and surrounded by empty land. But the infrastructure works, the rent is low, and you can get parts and tools without driving an hour. 6. Poplar Bluff, Missouri, one-bedroom, $460 / two-bedroom house with yard, $595. Population around 17,000. 2 hours south of St. Louis, surrounded by farmland and the Mark Twain National Forest. The city maintains its own streets with a dedicated department. A patching truck was working methodically and professionally on Barron Road. Water comes from deep wells in the Ozark Aquifer, nitrate below 1 part per million, no lead detects, no copper issues, coliform testing negative, hardness moderate at 120 parts per million. A drinking fountain at a city park produced clean water with no chlorine burn and no mineral aftertaste. Ace Hardware on Westwood Boulevard had everything needed to repair a leaking pipe, replace an outlet, or fix a broken latch. Butch Height, the regional farm and home store, carried bulk fence supplies, treated lumber, concrete bags, T-posts, stock tanks, and a full power tool section. A retired nurse who moved from Springfield in 2021 was paying $510 a month for a small two-bedroom house with a carport and fenced yard. Power was $55 in winter, $70 in summer. Water was $31. She had more money left at the end of the month than she had had in years. Poplar Bluff is not flashy, it is not growing, but it works, and for someone who wants cheap rent and functional infrastructure without moving to the middle of nowhere, it checks every box. 5. Cullman, Alabama, one-bedroom, $540 / two-bedroom house, $675. Population around 16,000, halfway between Birmingham and Huntsville. Founded by German immigrants in the 1870s, with that legacy still visible in the architecture and local food culture. The city handles streets inside town limits and the county handles the rural roads. Pavement quality throughout every neighborhood visited was consistently good, with intact curbs, clear drainage, and modern resurfacing equipment working on 3rd Avenue Southeast. Water is drawn from Smith Lake and treated at a city facility, lead non-detect. Copper below 0.1 parts per million. Disinfection byproducts within federal limits, total coliform negative on all samples. The Ace on 2nd Avenue Southwest had plumbing fittings for copper, PVC, and PEX, electrical supplies including breakers and wire nuts, and fastener bins organized by diameter and thread pitch. Staff confirmed the exact galvanized lag bolt size for a deck repair without hesitation. Cullman Stockyard carries fence posts, wire, concrete mix, rebar, treated lumber, and tools rarely seen in other small towns. A man who moved from Nashville in 2020 was paying $625 a month for a two-bedroom house with a full basement and a two-car garage. In Nashville, he had been paying $1,300 for a one-bedroom with no parking. His cost of living dropped by half and his quality of life doubled. He could afford to eat out twice a week. He was saving money for the first time in a decade. He said he could breathe. 4. Hutchinson, Kansas, one-bedroom, $520 / two-bedroom house with garage, $660. Population around 40,000. An hour northwest of Wichita, sitting on top of one of the largest salt deposits in the world. Salt mining has operated for over 100 years, providing stable employment and tax revenue that shows up in the roads, the water system, and the availability of services. Fresh asphalt was visible on multiple residential streets during the visit. Pothole patching was current. Stripping was visible. Storm drainage was clear and functional. Water comes from the Equus Beds Aquifer. Nitrate below 2 parts per million, lead and copper non-detect. Disinfection byproducts well within limits. Tapping from a park near the Kansas State Fairgrounds produced clean water with no chemical aftertaste. Hutchinson Building Supply, open to the public despite specializing in contractor-grade materials, carried lumber, plywood, drywall, insulation, roofing supplies, and fasteners sold by the pound. Orsheln Farm and Home had bulk hardware, concrete, fence supplies, and knowledgeable staff who were not pushy. A woman in her early 60s who moved from Kansas City in 2021 was renting a small house for $590 a month. Her utilities were lower, her car insurance dropped, and her stress level disappeared. In Kansas City, she had felt stretched every month. In Hutchinson, she had margin. She said that margin changed everything. Nobody is writing articles about moving to Hutchinson, but for someone who needs affordable rent and infrastructure that works, it is one of the best deals in the Midwest. 3. Sikeston, Missouri, 1-bedroom, $450 2-bedroom house, $575. Population around 16,000. 20 minutes from the Mississippi River, surrounded by flat farmland and cotton fields. Not pretty, not trendy, but it works and it is cheap. The city has a street department with dedicated funding, fresh pavement on multiple residential streets, patch potholes, intact curbs, and clear storm drains. City employees who had been doing road work in the area for years were resurfacing a 2-block section on South Main Street. Water is drawn from deep wells in the Ozark Aquifer with filtration, disinfection, and fluoridation. Lead non-detect, copper non-detect, nitrate below 1 part per million, coliform testing negative on all samples. Butch height carried fencing supplies, bulk concrete, treated posts, rebar, hand tools, power tools, plumbing fittings, and fasteners organized by size. Ace had everything from caulk to PVC fittings with staff who were helpful without being overbearing. A retired factory worker who moved from St. Louis after his wife passed was living on Social Security, paying $520 a month for a 2-bedroom house with a carport and a fenced yard. Power was $62. Water was $29. He was eating better than he had in 5 years because he was not stressed about money. He said moving to Sikeston gave him his life back. It is hot in summer, it is flat, there is not much to do. But if you need a place that does not cost a fortune, where the water runs clean and the roads do not destroy your car, Sikeston delivers. 2. Dyersburg, Tennessee, 1-bedroom, $475 2-bedroom house, $595. Population around 16,000. An hour north of Memphis, surrounded by cotton and soybean fields. Small, quiet, and incredibly affordable. The town is clean and well-maintained with streets in good condition throughout. The city street department operates with dedicated funding, and the results are visible, consistent pavement with no gravel sections inside city limits and active maintenance crews. Water service is provided by the city utility drawing from the Mississippi River alluvial aquifer. Treatment includes filtration, disinfection, and fluoridation. The most recent water quality report shows lead non-detect, copper non-detect, nitrate well below EPA limits, and coliform testing negative on all samples. The water from a gas station tapped during the visit was clean with no chemical taste and no sediment. There is an Ace Hardware and a Tractor Supply that together cover everything from household repair to farm and construction supplies. Staff at the Ace knew what a compression union was, had it in stock in 3 sizes, and confirmed the right choice for copper to PX connection without looking it up. A retired postal worker who moved from Memphis in 2019 was renting a 2-bedroom house for $550 a month with a covered carport and a fenced backyard. His power bill ran $68 in summer. Water and trash combined were $34. He said Memphis had worn him down. The noise, the cost, the constant feeling of being behind. In Dyersburg, he woke up in the morning not worried about money. He said that feeling was worth more than anything he had left behind. 1. Greenville, Mississippi, 1-bedroom, $395 2-bedroom house with yard, $495. Population around 30,000. In the Mississippi Delta, an hour east of the Arkansas border, surrounded by rice and soybean fields. This is where the $470 2-bedroom was found, with full pressure at every faucet and a family-owned hardware store that has been operating since 1953. Greenville is not a town anyone moves to for ambition. It is a town people move to when they are done letting rent dictate their lives. The streets in the residential neighborhoods off Highway 1 and Washington Avenue are maintained by the city and Bolivar County. Some streets show their age, but none are impassable, and active patching was visible throughout the visit. The city water system draws from the Mississippi River alluvial aquifer, one of the deepest and most protected freshwater sources in the South. Treatment includes aeration, filtration, chlorination, and fluoridation. The Consumer Confidence Report showed lead at the 90th percentile of 1.2 parts per billion against an action level of 15, copper at 0.09 parts per million, nitrate below 1 part per million, and coliform testing negative across all samples. Water from a tap at a park restroom was cold, clean, and had no off flavors. Williams Hardware on Washington Avenue has been in operation since 1953 under the same family. The inventory is unlike anything seen in a chain store. PVC fittings for drain, waste, and vent in every configuration. Copper sweat fittings in 10 sizes, compression unions in 4 material options, black iron pipe in 6 lengths, electrical conduit fittings, breakers, outlets, wire by the foot, and a fastener wall with over 200 SKUs organized by material and thread. The man at the counter knew the difference between Schedule 40 and Schedule 80 PVC, and when to use each without being asked. He had been working there for 22 years. A woman in her late 50s who had moved from Jackson in 2020 was paying $480 a month for a two-bedroom house with a covered porch, a full yard, and a storage shed. Her power bill ran $75 in summer with the air conditioner running constantly. Her water and trash combined were $26. She was living on Social Security and a part-time bookkeeping job. She said she had tried 3 other towns before Greenville, and none of them had the combination she needed: rent low enough to breathe, water safe enough to drink, and someone nearby who could fix the things that broke without charging her a week's income to do it. Greenville gave her all three. Here is what every town on this list has in common. The tax base stayed stable enough to keep the roads maintained. The water system was either built well or upgraded recently. There's at least one hardware store where the person behind the counter has been there long enough to know what they're talking about. None of these towns are destinations. None of them are growing fast or attracting national attention. That is exactly why they work. Affordability in America does not disappear everywhere at once. It retreats to the places the national conversation ignores. And the people who find those places before everyone else does are the ones who stop spending half their income on rent and start actually living on what they earn. The checklist in the description will help you verify any town on this list or any town you find on your own. Use it before you move. It will save you from the ones that look cheap on a website but fall apart in person.